Ros, what more do we know about this proposal? How significant is it?
Well, as you say, there's two aspects to it, actually. One is this fund, which would be $100 billion over 5 years. The other part of it is actually baking the operational responsibility for weapons deliveries into NATO itself. Right now, it's being led largely by the US, what's known as the Ukraine Contact Defense Group. And what they'll be doing is absorbing that back into NATO as part of this proposal that could be discussed at this meeting today and tomorrow. And the idea really is to ring fence this aid to Ukraine over a protracted period out of concern, partly because of the US political environment and the prospect that Donald Trump may be back in the White House after the next US election. Of course, he's been quite critical of the aid to Ukraine, critical of NATO also over the years, and suggested the US could pull funding for both. And the idea is, given the political climate in the US, whether it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden right now back in the White House, there is that sort of sense of concern about whether the US can continue to support the aid flows to Ukraine. We've seen that $60 billion package still stuck in Congress many, many months later. And so the idea is really to sort of shield some of this via the NATO machinery. The question is, will that be successful? It will be discussed today. There may not be entire support for it amongst NATO members, but certainly it's the most important thing on the table for discussion.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what happens to this funding if Trump gets in, but what else, Ros, is going to be on the agenda for NATO members at this meeting?
Well, aside from this, the leadership of NATO itself is going to be discussed. Of course, there's still that question of who's going to replace Jens Stoltenberg at some point. There had been a coalescence around the outgoing Dutch Prime Minister, Mark Rutte. He seemed to be the lead candidate, but now some of the Baltic states have put some support behind Romania, the Romanian president, Klaus, that he might actually be someone that they want to support. It does seem as though most of the support, again, is behind Mark Rutte, but there will be that conversation about who's going to lead NATO into possibly a really different environment over the next 5 years. You've got not just the conflict in Ukraine still going, you've got fundamental questions about Europe's self-defense in an era where Vladimir Putin might be casting his gaze further towards Europe. You've got the conflict that's going on in the Middle East. You've got tensions still between the US and China. In that complex environment, you need someone who's going to be able to lead NATO and all the members in some sort of unity. So it really is a fundamental question. That's going to be the other major topic for discussion today.